Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's Wednesday show. Is it Wednesday? I think so. I'm Chris. This is Chris, and we are back on the Writing Community Chat Show, and we are very happy to be here. And hello on the chat, hello on wherever you're watching, and welcome. And please share and all that good stuff, and hit the like button. Hello, Chris Hooley, End of the Stairs. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. I'm so excited for tonight's show. I'm a huge fan of all the things we're about to talk about. I can't wait. So yeah,
yeah,
it's gonna be good.
It's going to be fun. And some of you may have known that I had a dentist appointment today, and I was very worried that a couple of weeks ago, a week or so ago, they pulled my tooth out, and there was no way in the world I would have been able to do the show, and I wasn't sure what they were doing today. And my mouth works, so I'm happy to be here. Because it would have been Hooley on his own, and we know he doesn't like that. So it's good to be here. And greetings to you all. Hello on the chat, and do you know what, Chris? It's only a week away from our Christmas party, which means it's nearly...
That is insane. That really has come round very quickly. Like, I remember when we first mentioned doing a Halloween party, it was like, yeah, we'll do a Halloween party. And then it was like, that was over. And it was like, we do a Christmas one. And then it's like, oh my God, I've actually got to go and buy an outfit this week because it's very close.
Good point. I haven't got an outfit, which is kind of crazy. Hello, everybody. Hello. So first things first, be a token book promotion. Then we'll get the guest in and we'll talk about that very soon. And there is another Chris involved somehow, more second name based, but it's kind of weird. So there's too many Chris's going on all the time. So be a token book promotion is still going on. Still a fantastic promotion. If you're watching and you don't know about it, you can promote your book, and we'll talk about that very shortly. So calm down, Mr. Hooley. So Brenda Lynn, at that name, her book,
AKA Brenda Lynn. That is brilliant. Can I just say that Twitter name is great. Yeah. Also known as the exact same name.
So Charlie's Mirror is her book, and it hasn't had any ratings yet. It was released on the 8th of December. So please, help a fellow author out. We'd like to do this on the show. So give her a chance and have a look at her work. And I will share that image with you right now so you can see the cover. And there it is, Charlie's Mirror. And it looks kind of intriguing. There's a lot going on in that circle. You can see that, right?
That mirror. There's a lot going on in that mirror.
Yeah. Well, in this circle. It is a mirror. So please support that, and I will check that up in the top corner and then leave that rotating in the bottom. Bear with me. Hang on, Chris, I'm going to find it. I can leave you hanging. There it is, up in the top.
There we go.
Oh, so let's get on with the guest tonight, shall we? And that's not actually showing up, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. A deeply scarred. Is that scarred or scared? Scarred woman in 2019 wakes up.
If you're scarred in 2019, wait until 2020. You're going to be so scarred.
My tooth may be okay, but my brain still isn't working properly. They can't fix that in the dentist. So a deeply scarred woman in 2019 wakes up as a college student in 1989, the only person who can stop a deadly bombing. And she finds that conquering her own demons is the key to saving innocent lives. That sounds very cool. So please, again, check that book out. And let's get on with the correct thing. So we have Chris. Do you want to introduce this guest, or shall I do it?
Well, we can do it together if you want. On tonight's show, we have somebody who is so experienced in the world of writing. He's going to be an absolute just whiz to have on the show and for you to listen to as well. So stick around for the whole thing, because I guarantee you're going to learn loads. And if you like any of the following things that Chris Saget is about to mention, then you're going to love tonight's show, because I'm very excited about tonight's show from a fanboy perspective.
Yeah. So Made to Kill, Empire State, Dishonored, Stranger Things, Star Wars. There's an endless list. So we will get this guest on right now, so we can put you out the misery of this terrible introduction. So welcome to the show, Adam Christopher. Hello to you. How are you doing?
Hello. Hey, nice to be here. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's fantastic to have you on the show. It really is. And we weren't joking. We said that the big list of work that you've done, I think it's looking at your website, was around 20-ish works and probably more.
Yeah. It's funny, you lose count, which sounds stupid, but you do. My website is of great use to myself.
First thing to point out the fantastic array of Star Wars collections behind you. Yep, there they are.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So anyone on the chat, again, please like and share this. And if you have questions for Adam or ourselves, please drop them in. We have a few off Twitter, and we'll talk about those later.
Yeah.
So Adam, for anyone who may be watching this stream or maybe listening on the podcast later on, let's get into where writing came around in your life and how that developed into kind of what you're doing now.
I think I was very lucky. I wrote from childhood, and in fact, we did it at primary school. So I'm from New Zealand originally, and maybe I've thought about this, and maybe it's like I had some weird teacher who was like really a frustrated writer or something, because from the age of about 6 or 7, we had daily this thing called process writing, which is basically it was half an hour after lunch, and you had to write a story, which sounds now looking back kind of crazy. I mean,
yeah,
like forced labor for children writing stories. But the thing was, you do this thing called process writing, whereas like you wrote a story and the teacher would act as the editor, and you'd have this thing where you could be published, which meant that she'd choose the best stories from the class, and you got to write them out in pen on nice paper and then get put up on the wall, which was publishing.
wow.
Which is amazing. Like, this is my first experience of writing, and I think from there, because I grew up watching things, especially things like Doctor Who, and this is the 80s we're talking about, although it was actually 70s Doctor Who because it's New Zealand and it was really behind. But like, Knight Rider and Transformers and the A-Team and all that, G.I. Joe and that kind of stuff. I was really into all that kind of stuff, and I wanted to create my own stories in those worlds. So that was the perfect opportunity. So my book, I've got one that survived from 1985, and it's just full of basically Doctor Who fan fiction, mixed up with ghost stories, and then Transformers meets Mask meets He-Man.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Amazing.
Yes.
I was going to say, Adam, was that the moment that you realized you're actually good at writing, when you'd sat there for a few weeks maybe, and you're like, oh, I've got to get a teacher to put this on the wall?
Yeah. Well, it became this kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Did it become a point where Adam Christopher was always being on the wall and everyone else was getting jealous, or was that something that sort of developed over time and you?
I'm not sure about other people getting jealous, but there was a point, and again, I'm a young kid, right?
Yeah.
There was a point where my stories were getting picked every week. And it kind of continued to high school, because in high school I did English and stuff, and I was doing less creative writing because they kind of want you to do other things. But I wrote stories that were like picked for the high school yearbook and stuff, without even, like, the teacher would just kind of, go, oh, this is really good, it's been in the yearbook. So I was kind of aware that like I could probably write a story of some quality that people like.
Become famous as an author from a load of work they got inspired by, or like with some work they plagiarized. I don't know. It's either a really good way of creating that imagination and creativity from a child, or it's a really good way to like take that work for your own, and or maybe that person had a little publishing house you didn't know about.
yeah.
So would your teacher set you a set brief? Would they say you have to write from the perspective of this character, or you have to create this original character, or you have to create this original story? Like, how would they do it, and how did that sort of, that love that you had early on, how did that span into sort of teenage years and then ultimately a career?
I think, I don't recall there being specific briefs, and the thing that gets me now is like there was no brief, but they didn't stop me writing Doctor Who stories. You could imagine that they would encourage you to be a bit more original, but no one really bothered. In high school, as I said, it was less frequent, and then when I got to university, I kind of stopped writing altogether because university was just really busy. But I still had this background desire to be writing, even though I wasn't, and I hadn't written for years. I was like, I need to be doing something. So I kind of, after university, kind of got back into it. And again, it was Doctor Who fan fiction. There's the New Zealand Doctor Who fan club fanzine called TSV, which I ended up editing kind of at the end. Yeah, because fanzines is like the old world now. They kind of they exist, but not really. But they, that was my first kind of published work. I mean, it was fan published, but again, it was Doctor Who short
Yeah.
stories.
Big inspiration.
Yeah, Adam, Doctor Who keeps coming up quite a lot in your early years, especially. Why do you think that program in particular had such an impact on you?
I think, well, it's really good for a start, right? And as a fan of science fiction in the 80s, growing up watching John Pertwee Doctor Who because it was 10 years out of date. So I'm kind of like out of time a little bit. But I think the thing about Doctor Who in particular, and I was quite lucky because Doctor Who at that time was a very kind of literate fandom, because you had the TV episodes and you also had the target novelizations. Before the days of VHS and DVD and all that kind of stuff, that was how you relived the stories. So from the ages of about 6 to 10, I read nothing else but Doctor Who novelizations. So names like Terence Dicks and Ian Marter and these writers who wrote for the TV show and then also wrote novelizations. I kind of always in my mind have put science fiction and writing together. It was like the stuff that I saw on TV, which I liked in Doctor Who, which I then wrote as fan fiction at school. I was also reading as proper books.
Yeah.
So it kind of all was together in that science fiction. Because my parents kind of have a science background, so I've always been sort of sciencey. So science fiction was something that you could create yourself at the same time as you could enjoy it. You could read the book, you could enjoy it on TV, and you could write it yourself as well. So it's a convergence of luck and timing. I think I was the right age at the right time. My parents said you should watch Doctor Who because you probably really like it. I watched it, years ago.
From a reader's point of view, then, like, what attracted you to the novels? Obviously, you love the character and you love the TV shows, but what did you see and what attracted you to reading the novels? Because I should imagine that's a very different platform. You've got one, obviously, very visual, very sort of quick and, within the half an hour or whatever. And then you've got the novel, which is obviously a lot longer and it goes into a lot more detail. So what did you notice from a reader's perspective, and what have you sort of taken on board as now a writer that writes those type of novels?
That's a really interesting question. I think the novels were as important as the TV episodes, and I think again it was this kind of just the time, because it was on I can't remember, it was like a Friday night in New Zealand, and you didn't record it, it was gone. The only way to relive it was to either write down what you could remember, which is kind of the genesis of fan fiction at that age, or read the book if you could find the book in the library. If I had like grandparents and relatives who would give me books for birthdays and Christmas, and I was lucky to grow up in a household that valued reading. Both my parents have been big readers. My dad liked science fiction. So I was just kind of lucky. And I remember being fascinated by the fact that these books, like they were I mean, this is Doctor Who books in particular, but the target novelizations are the same but different to the TV episodes. And it's almost like two distinct memories of TV episodes and the corresponding novelization, but being a fan of both in different ways, which I think must have influenced me to be a writer.
Connor's got a question, and he says, Adam, which is the best Doctor Who, and why?
That's so difficult. Because I'm the wrong. That's the thing. It's like I'm like the diehard Doctor Who fan, but which means it's not actually the Doctor I grew up watching, which was John Pertwee, but I love William Hartnell, the first Doctor, because I think the stories are just more. They were more experimental and more. I don't know. They were kind of wild. Well, because they were trying stuff out and they're figuring the show out, and then later on it becomes more of a formula, which is a formula I enjoyed. but definitely, and this is, I came to the first Doctor much later. So that's not a growing up experience for me.
So Adam, what I was going Hulu's best.
Halo said Hulu's
Irish.
best Doctor is because we kind of think like David Tennant a little bit, but
yeah, maybe not so much now, but yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you went to university. What did you study at university, and how did that sort of educational journey then result in you writing full time and becoming an author? Because that's not necessarily something that just happens to people.
Yeah, I did pharmacology and physiology.
Wow.
And then I did a master's in cancer pharmacology. Nothing to do with writing whatsoever.
Yeah.
Nothing arty or creative. Very science. But it was just something that I found I was quite good at biology at high school. So I was like, well, fine, I'll do something biological. When I was at university, I was not writing. It was only afterwards that I came into it, like, not just as a hobby, but more of this is the thing I need to do.
Yeah.
And want to do. And maybe it's a reaction to the fact that I was doing stuff which is very science, which is, a lot of writers do English or literature or, arts degrees and stuff. Whereas I'm like, I never had that. So I came to, just trying to remember the times. I was writing properly, and then we moved from New Zealand to the UK because I got a job and they kind of shipped us over. And I remember there was a small publisher that had an open submission window for novels, science fiction novels. So I submitted the proposal, and I thought, this is obviously pure genius, the greatest science fiction novel ever, and it's going to be really easy, and they'll give me to write loads of books. And it was exactly the same time that we moved from New Zealand to the UK, and I got to the UK, and one of the first things that happened was they rejected the proposal. And I was like, what do you mean rejected? How could that possibly be? But it was kind of like this moment where I thought, oh yeah, no, actually that's right, because like if I want to do that for a job and be committed to it, I have to take it seriously. I have to work at it. Yeah, because in school, high school and all that, I'd kind of lucked into my stories were picked for whatever. It's like I had sort of trained myself into thinking that I could write something and someone would like it. But actually, like it's hard work, hard work, and you have to really commit to it. So that thing of being rejected was actually really good, because I was like, okay, no, actually, if you want to do this, you got to do it properly.
Yeah.
So then I was like, right, that's it. I'm going to do it. So
Yeah, it's like having a good teacher for ages going, yeah, we'll put that on the wall, it's great. And then the evil teacher turns up and goes, nope, it's not good enough for the wall yet.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So,
it's like, this is exactly what needed to happen.
Can I just skip a little bit ahead, because I want to talk about this, and I definitely want to get this in before we move on later on in a different part of the show. But Stranger Things is something that was a phenomenon in the TV world recently. And you wrote a book, Darkness on the Edge of Town, which was a Jim Hopper prequel. And this fascinates me, because if I got to choose any character from the Stranger World sort of a series, or I think I would definitely go down the Jim Hopper world, and to get to write that character and take him into sort of a city world on a detective trail, I think that's fantastic. So at what point did you sort of, I believe from research, you're a fan of Stranger Things as well. So was there a point that you got this sort of work to do and you became very excited, and how was that process for you?
Yeah, that was really good, because I was a super fan of Stranger Things, and Jim Hopper's my favorite character in Stranger Things. It's one of these things where to do tie-in work, which is Stranger Things or Elementary or Star Wars, you kind of have to have established yourself as a writer kind of in your own right, beforehand. Only because, not only because, but tie-in work is high pressure with short deadlines. There's a lot of expectations, a lot of people looking at it. They need to know that you can meet the brief on time, and that we can write a book for a start. You can finish a book, all this kind of stuff. So you got to have all this kind of experience behind you. So to get Stranger Things, I'd done Elementary and Dishonored beforehand, which were kind of like they're great, but they're like slightly lower down the ladder to Stranger Things, right? And I'm not denigrating Elementary or Dishonored at all.
Yeah.
But like Stranger Things, when the kind of job came in, I was like, wow, this is like a dream job.
So how did that job come about? Did you have to pitch that, or did they come to you with the idea?
They came. It's kind of well, I don't know if it's a circular story, but the publishers of Stranger Things are Del Rey, and Del Rey do Star Wars and things. And I'd kind of, because I do San Diego Comic Con and New York Comic Con for other things, I'd kind of, as writers, you end up mingling and forming connections and friendships and whatever right across the industry. And they knew that I wrote science fiction / urban fantasy, sometimes a bit of horror, with a kind of mystery, thriller, crime thing, because I love like crime fiction. So they needed, for Stranger Things, they needed a Jim Hopper prequel novel, and they thought that I would be a good fit. So they came to me, and the brief, I mean, tie-in stuff usually, they're very specific. They need whatever this book is to fit into whatever this schedule is, whatever the timeline of the program or the show or the comic or the movie, whatever. And they wanted the brief was a Jim Hopper prequel story set in New York, and he's chasing a serial killer, and that was it. So this is the whole thing of like having experience, because they knew that from that kind of one paragraph description, I had to write an entire outline. And this is the great thing I love about tie-in fiction. So like it's a novel, which is quite hard to do anyway, but then it has to fit into the universe that you've been hired to write for. So it had to be a Stranger Things novel. It has to use characters that people, or they're already created, but that's almost harder because people they know and love these characters already. So like you have to absolutely get it right, because if you don't get it right, people are really going to notice. So it has to be like a coherent, entertaining, novel-length piece of fiction that fits the brief, that fits the universe, that uses the characters that already exist. So like it's actually, that's not something for everybody. A lot of writers don't like doing that for obvious reasons, because it's it can be quite a difficult job. But for me, like, the thing I love about tie-in fiction is the fact that it's this challenge. You're almost like challenged to come up with a story for Jim Hopper in New York, chasing a serial killer. Go. So I did, because I love Jim Hopper, and I have an interest, coincidentally, in New York history. And I realized with the timeline with the show that I could place it in 1977, which is sort of 6 years before the TV show, which is exactly this period in New York where it was really kind of interesting. And there was a blackout. I had this idea for a New York City blackout story for years. And it's like, wait, he was a cop right in the middle of the blackout. So it kind of all came together. And, it helps being a fan of whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because it allows you loads of shortcuts.
Yeah.
I don't think you necessarily must be a fan, and it's not fan fiction, it's a different type of writing, but it kind of helped.
Halo's asked the question, and she said, was there anything, obviously writing through Stranger Things and Jim Hopper, that you couldn't do in the story? Was there sort of any restrictions you had there? And or was it literally, there's the story, Jim Hopper in New York City, and literally do what you do? Or was there perimeters that you couldn't cross?
I think, there's always parameters. You can't, I couldn't kill Hopper. I couldn't kill main characters. And the thing with tie-ins, most tie-ins are kind of
too happy with that.
well, it's almost like you can do anything you want so long as you get back to where you started from at the end.
With Adam, with Stranger Things and with the Hopper prequel, did they say that there was a specific audience in mind? Because obviously Stranger Things is like a lot of adults like it, but a lot of teenagers like it as well. So with the prequel and the Hopper novel, did they say it has to be sort of borderline either way, or were they quite free with that?
I think they were free. I mean, they really had no direction for that. I mean, it had to be a Stranger Things story.
Yeah.
And with that comes all what you just said, what's the tone, who is the audience, what kind of things. Yeah, as you said, if you're an adult fan of the show, you take different things from it. If you're a younger fan, that's the same with Star Wars and Doctor Who and everything, I think. So long as I could write a story that fitted the Stranger Things universe, I think that kind of covered all the bases. Because the thing about the book was, if it's set 6 years before the TV show, how do you have a Stranger Things story, which is about monsters and paranormal and science fiction and horror, when the first time that we meet Hopper, he's just an ordinary cop, and the first time he ever encounters anything supernatural or weird is in season 1 of Stranger Things. So suddenly I've got to write a story set 6 years before, which still has to feel like a Stranger Things story, because if you see the Stranger Things logo on the front of the book, you know what you're going to get. There's an expectation. So that was actually the hard bit. It was like, well, okay, he's a cop in New York and there's a serial killer, and I can't have anything supernatural really, because it would change his character in season 1, which we've already seen. So the way I did it, spoiler alert, is it's kind of 50-50 whether what he encounters in the book is actually supernatural, or the villain is just one of those charismatic cult leaders. Like, was he just a cult leader who could control people, or was he channeling some kind of power that he discovered? So Hopper himself in the book is like, he can rationalize it because it's 1970s New York is pretty gritty, and he hasn't got time to be wasting on fantasies and stuff. So he can rationalize what he experiences.
Yeah.
That doesn't change how we meet him in season 1, but for the reader of the book, you can kind of take either or point of view on it.
Yeah. I was going to say, Adam, you've done a lot of tie-in type novels now. So what has been your favorite to do? Obviously, you've done Stranger Things, you've had links with Star Wars, and you've done that sort of world as well. What have you enjoyed most from a writer's perspective?
I think it's funny. I wrote a Star Wars comic, which is again different kind of writing altogether, and it was only like a 8-page backup in Star Wars Adventures, which is the IDW sort of more younger, not for kids, but it's like a younger audience. And the brief for that was they wanted a character from the sequel trilogy, like a secondary character. So I chose my favorite one, who was Tally from The Last Jedi. And like, the thing about comics is that it's quite fast, and it was only 8 pages. So I had to cram a story into 8 pages. And you can write, after I did the outline and all that, you can kind of write that in a day, which is quite satisfying from a kind of craft point of view, because you're like, well, beginning, middle, end, that works. So that was kind of fun. Although again, that's not books, or that's different. Comics is a very different form.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, Elementary was the first tie-ins I did, and that was kind of like, I felt like somehow I was following in the footsteps of those writers who'd done the target novelizations for Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Terrence Dicks, one of my heroes, wrote Doctor Who books, and here I wrote 2 Elementary books.
So how did that feel, stepping into his shoes, like someone that you've read as a reader and you've enjoyed and you become a fan of, and then you're suddenly like, right, he's done this great work, over to you.
Yeah, because the thing about tie-ins is that often people kind of look down on them as being not not real books. They're kind of easy, or why don't you write your own story kind of thing, which you're doing anyway. But I mean, it's changed a little bit. I think there's more of a understanding of what a good licensed book is. And it was just fun. It was like I can, it's different to writing original work. And I discovered that this thing that I had an interest in and loved reading as a kid, the idea of a tie-in, I enjoyed writing it, which was, satisfying, because what if I'd hated it? What if it was like the worst thing ever? I would have been so disappointed.
Yeah.
Can we just move on a little bit towards the Star Wars theme? Because obviously you were a critical part of, from a certain point of view, which is an anniversary works for Star Wars. And talking about other perspectives, that you wrote this part of that story from someone who is on the Death Star as almost a ground worker, and that perspective from them when things were going down, as opposed to a main character that we all know from the shows and kind of do have the dialogue, but someone in the background. That's a really clever point of view, and I think it's very clever in the way that a lot of people, when they watch Star Wars, are so fixated on the main characters and they're drawn to it from the way it's shot and the way it's produced that you never think about that. So to bring that out in the story is pretty awesome. Why did you choose that as the sort of point of view of that story?
Well, I think so. That was the first one. That was for A New Hope. And then, in fact, the one for Empire Strikes Back has just come out, which I had a story in as well. But for the one for A New Hope, it's like the whole thing about these books is that I think like it was an idea that they had that was kind of a little bit crazy. It's like, let's have 40 stories from 40 different authors on 40 different point of views from scenes that we already know from the movie. So like, what could you possibly do with that? But the way it worked was like suddenly you see the movie in a completely different way, because now if you read the book and then watch the movie, you're like suddenly aware of all these other characters that you never see, or you do see briefly somewhere, that suddenly you have their point of view in the book. And I think for the first one, for Star Wars, I had to write, or I chose to write, the other side of the conversation that Han has on the communicator when like he's like, everything's fine here, how are you? Because I thought, who are the people on the other end of that channel, and what on earth are they thinking about what's going on? But then it occurred to me, and you mentioned that the kind of these background imperial nameless people in a control room somewhere. The whole thing of this massive Death Star and this huge operation, everything in the movie is fixated on the core story, obviously, which the people of how many million, probably 1 million staff in the Death Star, how many of them had any idea what was going on? They're just like doing their jobs. It's their duty. They're enrolled in the Imperial Navy, their whatever rank. So it was, so these people in the control room, they're like, what is going on in this prison cell? And then later on, one of them has to call, it's another scene in the movie, they call Tarkin, so there's been an alert in AA-27, whatever it is. And he's like, the princess. And the control room people are like, princess? What princess? Like, what is he talking about? Why is there a princess on the Death Star? So I really love the idea that like nobody has any idea what's going on because they're just doing their job. Which I kind of did in the second one. So for Empire Strikes Back, it's a stormtrooper. The story's called The Witness, and it's about a stormtrooper on the Cloud City who is Invader's kind of bodyguard. And she's been thinking about it a long time, but she kind of is fed up of the Empire, so she defects. Well, doesn't defect the rebels, but she kind of quits the Empire. And again, it's a character that you do see on screen, and like there's very specific scenes which I show her point of view. But again, like she's a person in a huge galaxy in the middle of a story which has nothing to do with her, but everybody is the kind of hero of their own story. So the point of view of these other smaller characters is really important. And it gives a greater depth to the whole, because I said the movies, you're watching the plot about the main characters at the top of the tree doing their thing, when in a kind of larger universe there's a whole load of characters.
So Adam, you've obviously, with A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, you're writing for a fan base that sort of already exists and that is there and that is hardcore. However, obviously you're writing now for The Mandalorian, which we can talk about a little tiny bit. But how does it feel to be writing for a new generation of Star Wars fans?
Yeah, you kind of have to pinch yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
This is the thing about writing, is like, never, ever, ever, ever take it for granted. Like, what I do is a dream, and like, I don't ever forget that. So writing for something like Star Wars is like, that's the pinnacle of, and again, that sounds like I'm talking it down, of tie-in writing, but like, tie-in writing is so important to me that like, that's not saying anything bad about it at all. So yeah, it's like, I just have to remember that it's a really, really good job, and I get to do these things that not many people can do, and it's a lot of fun. And I try not to think about the fact that a lot of people are going to read it, and there's a kind of some kind of background pressure that's like nothing to do with me. That's Star Wars. Star Wars is on the cover. So
do you know what? Because it is the transition between the original '80s fans, and that sort of nostalgia to a new complete generation moving forward, and it's almost sort of the next phase, and it's a big thing.
I think, yeah, and in fact, what I've learned and kind of come to appreciate is the fact that I'm an original Star Wars generation fan, but I was too young for Star Wars. I was minus 1 year old when it came out.
Just a
but then I became a fan of the trilogy through home video and things in the 80s. But also, like, people forget there's another next generation of Star Wars fans is with the prequel trilogy. And like older fans like me, kind of at the time, were like a bit sniffy about it. But like, that introduced Star Wars to a whole other generation of fans in the same way that the original trilogy did to people like me. And then again, skip forward again, like you pointed out, you've got things like Clone Wars and Rebels and the new movies. You've got the sequel trilogy. And like, the best thing in the world is when you see, like, on Twitter and stuff, kids being taken to Disney World and Galaxy's Edge, and they meet Kylo Ren and Rey. If I was that age and those kind of things existed, that would be like the most incredible thing I could think of. So it's like another generation.
We've got a question. Hang on, Chris.
Don't ask that question.
We often have a little battle question between us, and Chris likes one thing. Chris likes another thing, and we have a debate about who is the better bad guy of these two characters. And Kylo Ren or Darth Maul, who do you think was a better baddie?
It's interesting. Well, it's like Darth Maul. He's in Phantom Menace for like 5 minutes, and then another thing I've kind of become aware of is that 95% of Star Wars fans just watch the movies. They don't watch anything else. They're not really aware of anything else, which is fine because there's too much of it to keep track of anyway. So like, Darth Maul's kind of evolution as a character came really through comics and also animated series. And then he pops up again at the end of Solo, which probably surprised a lot of people because he was last seen in the Phantom Menace kind of 20 years ago. So Kylo Ren being the main kind of protagonist or antagonist in the sequel trilogy. I mean, my favorite would be Darth Maul, but you kind of have to say that.
Yes, Adam.
Yeah, yes. But you'd have to say that like Kylo Ren's arc is kind of more.
Yes.
I think as a character, Kylo Ren just smashes it out of the park.
No, he doesn't. He's
so human, and he just
see. This is the thing I was going to ask Adam, because this sort of ties into the question. I'm a fan of the original three, and then you've got the the sort of prequel trilogy, which is this I struggle to get on board with, and then you've got the modern three. But the Mandalorian for me is like a sort of, it's going back to the original trilogy, sort of what you know and love about Star Wars, and that for me is why I've enjoyed the Mandalorian series so much more than anything else. And that's why I was saying about a new readership possibly coming to the Mandalorian for that element of Star Wars that we, well, I say we, as in speaking for a collective, but as a generation of original Star Wars fans seem to have enjoyed the Mandalorian more because of how it's told.
Yes.
There we go.
Let's move on, because we need to do the other half of the show, and otherwise we'll be here forever talking about this. And
but
I'm sure
Adam looks like he's got something to say on that matter.
Oh, go on.
I mean, I could be wrong. He could just be.
I'm not allowed to talk about Mandalorian.
He's let's on Mandalorian. So we're going to talk about the new family member, and this is a very brief thing, and I hope that we go this direction with the gifts. But we have a new community member each week off Twitter, that's someone who's kind of new in the Twitter game as a writer, is trying to develop their social platform, and we plague them with gifts. So everyone that watches right now and kind of listens to the show will find their Twitter and throw a gif in their direction, but the guest always chooses the gif. So Adam, is there something particular gift style you want to send this person? Anything you want. It's been random as you like before this.
What are my options?
Anything.
I must have options.
Darth Maul would be a great choice.
Darth Maul.
Issue.
Would have to be something Star Warsy, wouldn't it?
Yeah. It could just be Star Wars in general, or a certain type of thing, or whatever. Anything at all.
No, I think Star Wars in general.
Okay. I really thought it was going to go in that direction. It has. Oh, you said Baby Yodas.
Oh, Baby Yodas.
Yes.
Well, it's Star Wars, so you can put that on. So this person, Chris, get ready, is Lindsay Clark at LYNDSIE author. So Lindsay author. She's a linguist, writer, lover of the written and spoken word, cat enthusiast, lazy, conflicted tree hugger, avid shoe shopper, and labor addict.
Mate, you're really picking them at the moment.
Hey, don't abuse me. These are the people that we need to support in the community.
It says conflicted tree hugger.
I have no idea. That's the one. So she got a picture of I don't even like cats, Chris. So this is a good deed for me today.
Oh my God.
So please find that person and send them Star Wars gifts, courtesy of the WCCS, of course. Otherwise, they might get a little confused.
Cat enthusiast, lazy, conflicted tree hugger. Are you going to put the video on for the new?
Oh yes, my apologies. Sorry.
We need the Ring of Fire.
Yeah. So there you go. There's the Ring of Fire, and I hope that satisfies people's thirst for blood.
There's Darth Maul in all his glory.
So
yeah, good.
While they're tweeting that out, Adam, we've got a fellow author shout out. So is there an author that you're really into that people should check out?
Well, see, I really like crime fiction.
Mm.
There is actually an author. Like my favorite book this year was a book called Blacktop Wasteland by S.A. Crosby or Cosby. He's going to kill me. Let me just wait a second.
Important. If it's related to the Cosbys, you've got a problem.
I don't think it's that Cosby. Anyhow,
but I can't even find him. Anyway, Blacktop Wasteland is this amazing kind of a rural crime noir novel, and he is a fantastic author. Really super. Like the book, when I read it, it's one of those books where you I hate every page because it is so well written and so effortless. Like you can tell there's something. It's almost it exists between the lines because you're like, well, this is fine. I have no idea how he wrote it. Like
Yeah.
it's just so good. So find him on Twitter for sure.
Elliot
And
Crosby.
read that book, Blacktop Wasteland.
So there you go, guys. Check that out.
I think Steve Kavanagh recommended that as well.
Yeah.
Yes. S.A. Cosby, and his Twitter ID is Black Lion King 73.
There you go, guys. Recommendation. Let's move on to the community question time, and I'm going to scroll back slightly because we had some good questions while you were talking earlier, and I didn't want to interrupt because you were getting deep into that. But let me find it there. Okay, so Connor said, "What world or franchise would be a dream come true to write in?" And obviously, you've already done a few, so this could be something. Maybe it could be Doctor Who. I'm not sure, but we'll find out. And what type of story would you do if you were given free reign?
Actually, like it would be Doctor Who. That's the one thing I haven't actually written in any kind of official capacity. So
Yeah.
that'd be really cool. I think, well, being the geek fan I am, if I had free reign on Doctor Who, it would probably be a bad idea. But it would be a kind of I loved when the BBC and Virgin Publishing used to do like past Doctor adventures, novels of the first Doctor, second, third, fourth.
We had Noel Clark on the show, so perhaps we'd have
Oh,
to
really?
put your links in there.
Yeah, I think he What would you do with Doctor Who if they said to you, "Look, Adam, we're struggling over at the BBC. We don't know what to do with with Doctor Who. We're going to give it to you. You're going to write the series and you're going to cast the main role. What would you do?" No pressure.
I don't know. I would definitely stare blankly into the middle distance for a long time. What a job that would be. But like, I'm totally not. This is the problem. I'm not the person to do it because, there's a difference between like writing for Doctor Who, being a Doctor Who superfan, and writing for Doctor Who. Like that is not. Sometimes it's fine. Sometimes it's not a good idea. Like, give me a book, perfect. But like the real thing, it would be like I'd just explode under the pressure. So it'd just be too much.
Here's the controversial question for you: the current Doctor Who that we have, where does she rank on your Doctor Who scale in terms of if we're going to say like 1 to 10, assuming she was in the top 10, where would she be?
That's true. There's more than 10. 10 being good and 1 being bad.
No, one being the best.
Oh, okay.
And Jodie Foster being 10.
Wow.
Lucky
I would. She's one of my favorite new series Doctors. Yeah, definitely.
Oh. Well, Chris, stop trying to slag her off.
I'm not slagging her off. I'm just.
Yeah,
that'd be fun.
Okay, so next question from E.G. Radcliffe. Do you ever act out your characters' scenes when no one else is around?
I've heard of people that do that.
I've not heard of that. I definitely don't do that. Chris, do you do that?
No.
I think it's more.
Yeah, Chris shouldn't be acting those out at all. Yeah, go on, Adam.
Well, I think sometimes you do kind of like it's more detailed things and movements and expressions and what you might do with your hands or whatever. You sometimes maybe even subconsciously figure it out.
I mean, for Adam, for him to act it out and become Hopper, for example, that would be a pretty hard life.
Yeah, there's like too many donuts and too many cigarettes, which I don't even smoke, so like that would be bad. Method writing of some sort.
Good question, Anya. She says, if you could murder any character from a book and get away with it, who would it be?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah. That's open to all of us. If you've got an answer, go for it.
I would murder Hercule Poirot and then get Captain Hastings to solve it.
Okay.
And it'll be like a whole alternate universe splits off. Where
I think, Chris, you would probably say Harry Potter because you said that before, just to ruin the show. Job done.
Yeah. That's a great question, and being put on the spot like that is not fun. But
being sat in the other seat, Chris, isn't it?
Harry Potter would be a good one, though, wouldn't he? To be honest, I mean, imagine how many children would have been disappointed if Voldemort just went poof. See you later, mate. You're dead.
First episode or chapter of Lord of the Rings gone. End of the story. Yeah. It's the same with World War Z. I'm a big fan of that book, and just to kill Jerry Lane, dies in the first time he meets the zombies, and that's the end of the story.
But to be fair, I think I'd have had more respect for J.K. Rowling if she'd have killed Harry Potter, because then he could have been a martyr. He could have been like, oh, and like everyone could have respected him a bit more. So,
Murder Potter. Just get it.
Trending #Murder Potter.
Murder Potter and make it about Draco. Yeah, you could do that.
You could do that. Although Draco is Kylo Ren-esque. He's a bit dweeby.
So next question. Have you ever been in a food fight? If so, what is your food weapon of choice?
Never have.
Never had?
No.
Seriously?
Yeah. Why?
Well, why?
Too messy. That sounds too messy.
I'm ex-forces, and we used to have a Christmas party every year that was absolutely ridiculous. And we'd have an aircraft hangar that was full of, say, hundreds of people in these massive tables, and they'd bring us these dinners, and no one would touch them, but you'd see everyone's just like clocking each other. And as soon as one sprout left the plate, you couldn't believe what followed afterwards. It was unbelievable. Every year we got in trouble, but they kept happening.
Wow. I mean, yes. I have actually been in a food fight. I've been in an unsuspected food fight. I went to what was supposedly a civilized dinner party, and this person, who was my boss at the time, her husband had made a load of pizzas, and he'd made the bases, and he said, help yourself to toppings. So there's all these toppings on the side, and it was literally, 10 meters worth of toppings, like cheeses, anything you could think of. And we were drinking a little bit, and the first person to make the pizza just decided to throw some cheese at somebody else, and then it was chaos. I actually had to help him redecorate the kitchen because it was that bad.
So when you say someone threw the cheese, it was you, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't me. It actually wasn't.
Then why would you help him decorate? Because that sounds like you messed up.
Because I felt like I was responsible for a lot of it, but not the cheese. In the beginning, pepperoni on the wall, sauce on the wall, passata. Yeah, definitely. I was involved in that, but not the cheese.
Question, great one, and it's from Chelsea. She says, "Do your answers to the questions change if you look at them as a reader instead?" I'm sure that made sense when I read it first time.
Yeah, because she asked the original question, didn't she? If you go back to her initial question, that was killing. Was it killing someone off?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Apologies. That's the second part of the question. So if you're killing a character off, does your opinion on killing that character off change if you're reading or writing that character? I think that's a yes.
Yeah, it must do.
I'm sorry.
With Potter, it works both ways. So,
yeah.
Let's kill him.
We'll move on from that. I'm stupid. Okay. Do you prefer a complete story or a cliffhanger?
Ooh.
So I have a habit of writing cliffhangers, which is a problem, which I learned from Doctor Who. Doctor Who taught me bad things as well. Ending on cliffhangers.
Episode out every week, whereas you're writing a book, it could take a long time.
Yeah. It's funny. I actually go for complete stories because I never write. It's a complete lie. I never write series, which is not true. I do, but the standalone novel. Beginning, end, new characters, new setting, new story. You can read it, and then that's it. I really like that.
Yeah, you can't have a standalone with a cliffhanger, surely.
No, I've had standalones which kind of the end is a bit open. So and that's the kind of thing if people want to read more about that, they can. Is
that done with the concept of perhaps going back into it and just leave it sort of tied up in case, or is that just?
Oh yeah, I think you have to. Well, for these ones, you have to tie up the story, but there's enough there. There's enough material there that you can go back and revisit, and maybe there's a thread that was not so important in the first book, but you can kind of develop it into the main story of the second kind of thing.
I like merging the two. I think a complete story that works on its own, that you don't have to necessarily go back to, but works as a cliffhanger as well.
Yeah.
In terms of
Yeah.
you're like, right, I do want to know more about that, and we could go back to it. Yeah, I think the combination of the two works well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you like prefer to write a male character or a female character?
I don't have a preference. It just, and the other thing is like I don't really choose. You know, when I get an idea for a story, it usually comes or starts with a character.
Yeah.
Like there's two things. There's an idea and there's a character that fits the idea. And it's one of those kind of weird things that happens in writing. Like you don't really choose. So the main character in the book I'm writing at the moment is a woman. Something like Hopper, obviously, it had, you know, you're given parameters. It's got to be these characters. So I'm probably written 50-50 over my own books. But again, not through any particular conscious decision.
I find it a strange one because I'm on my third book now, and every main character I've had so far has been female, and I'm not sure. There's no reason why. I don't know why. That's the way it's gone.
Yeah.
Chris, yours is male, right?
Yeah, every main character I've had has been male, but I think for me it's just I've never had an idea where I've gone, this would work well as a female. Like it's just not occurred to me yet. It might do in the future, but at this moment in time.
I'm not sure if this is a question, but I like it. And Chelsea said, the wand chooses the wizard, the story chooses the character.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, every writer's different, and every the way inspiration comes is different, and the way people work is different, and the way you construct a story. You know, some people have a character, and then comes the story and the plot after that. Some people have an idea for a plot or a story idea, and then the characters kind of get built into that. And I think probably everybody is a mix of one or the other, and it probably changes every book. But definitely there are, you know something is working. I know something is working when the story starts to take over, and no matter what I've outlined or planned, things happen as you write that you weren't expecting. And like, that's a kind of a good writing day. The difficult writing days are when you're just like slogging away and like you're following the outline infinitely closely because nothing is happening, you know.
So it kind of sounds like you mix a bit of plotting and pantsing in that respect, that you've got an outline, but then you let the story go where it goes. Is that correct?
Yeah. So for my own stuff, I do an outline, which is more like a list of story beats.
Yeah.
I use an Excel sheet, literally an Excel sheet, and like, okay, 40 chapters, and I know these things happen, and then I kind of fill that out and with gaps. Like, well, obviously I've got to connect that bit to that bit, and I insert the stuff that I know I want to do, and then kind of build up the structure. For things like tie-ins, and this is the other thing about tie-ins, is like they require usually super detailed outline. Like for the first one for Elementary was, the novel is 80,000 words, and the outline was 20,000 words. It's like a full quarter of the length of the novel was just the outline. Because with tie-ins and things, there's so many people have to look at it and approve it, and make sure you know what you're doing, and that it fits what they want. So like the more detail, the better. Which then, when it comes to writing it does make it easier in a way, because you absolutely have to follow the outline. And it's a situation where you can't really drift too much. I mean, you can, but yeah, they're expecting a book that follows the outline, so you can't handle.
How does that work when you actually deliver that final book? Like, I'm not talking about any specific sort of publication house or anything like that, but when you deliver that final book and they look at the brief and look at everything, do they send that book back multiple times if it doesn't fit, or do they sort of tailor it? Or
I think, I mean, the editing process is not really different from any other kind of novel, except instead of you and the editor, there's like you and the editor and the showrunner and the staff writer and the producer, and it's just a lot more rounds of the same kind of thing. And this, I mean, the ones I've handed in have all fitted the outline. So assuming that you can follow instructions and you deliver what they want, obviously you have to tweak things as you do with any book. Sometimes, like for Stranger Things, there was a few things had to be shifted. Because I kind of, and this is the thing, it's like I strayed too much into fan fiction, which that's not a bad thing, but like the book has to be readable by not quite so diehard fanatics of Stranger Things. So I kind of had to tone back on a few things. But yeah, I think it's a longer process. It's a longer process in a shorter space of time, if that makes sense, because publication deadlines are so tight and you've got so many more people involved. This is why it's very high pressure kind of writing, which not everyone likes to do. With your own stuff, you can take however long you want. Take a year. Doesn't matter.
Sorry, I muted myself there. Ladai says, how do you choose your character names? And for me, I know that's an issue. I struggle. But do you have an easy process for that, or is there a certain process you do have?
No, it's very painful. Sometimes, like it's like a title of a book. Like if you know when it's right, you're like, yeah, that's it. So book titles and character names, if you get them, it's great. And then if you don't, you're like, what am I doing? I've changed character names right up to like final proofing. I'm like, no, this character's name is wrong. I'll do something else.
I suppose it's hard when you're working in the realm of Star Wars, where the name could literally be anything.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of things you have to match the alien race or whatever.
Like, I've never met anyone called Obi-Wan Kenobi, but it's a great name.
It's like when you're doing normal human names, English names, Western names, it's funny because if you're reading a book, do you really like pay much attention? If you read a book and you're like, oh my god, that name is so wrong, whereas the writer went through hell trying to pick the right name, I guess that's the thing about me.
I'm going to admit I am one of those assholes who goes, yeah, that name is wrong. So yeah, I'm one of those readers.
And I'm one of the ones who takes ages and ages to find a name. I was about to say Ben. I have no idea. It's just BG Howard. Hello to you, new to the show, I think. He says, I'm newly published first-time author. Do you write as suggested from the end of the story? Me? Absolutely not. Adam?
No. Even when I outline, I usually don't have the very, very end kind of figured out. I may have, the crucial bits leading up to the end, but the actual conclusion, the actual finale, I often don't actually know until I write it. But that's the thing. Everyone writes differently.
Yeah. I think every book's different as well. Like my first novel, I didn't know how it was going to end, and I just sort of like enjoyed the ride. And then my second novel, the end came first, and I was like, yeah, how do I get to that point?
Yeah, and it's like if you have a super good idea for the ending that you really want to include, then you can work backwards from that.
All the people we've had on the show, it's obviously clear that it is individual across the board, from highly established authors to brand new self-published. So I'd say to you, BG Howard, just kind of figure it out and just do what comes naturally. And like Chris did, 1 minute is this, the next is that. So just do it as it comes.
Yeah, because also, the thing with writing is like the more you write, the more you learn about how you write. So now that I've been doing this for like 10 years and I've got all these books, I know how I work and what I can do. And that comes not just in terms of like how you structure things when you're writing, do you start from the end or do you outline or whatever, but it's like I know that I can write this many words in a day, I can finish a book by this date, it's going to require this many rounds of edits. So it's just like do it and you learn it for yourself.
Has that process changed a massive amount from you from back in the school days to how you write now, or has it kind of stayed along the same kind of lines?
Well, I think it's kind of stayed the same, but I'm a lot faster now.
Yeah.
And it's that thing of you have that confidence of knowing what you can do.
Do you still post them up on the wall?
Well, I mean, I've got like a bookshelf of my books, which is actually really good because I used to be able to. I don't have it at the moment, but like it used to be just over my monitor, this bookcase, because on bad days when you're like, I don't even know what I'm doing, and then I could look up and go, well, look, I've written all these books, so clearly, like I know what I'm doing at some level. So it's like a kind of inspiration thing.
For the people that are watching who are new, like every single author, it doesn't matter how advanced and experienced they are, still have the same doubts that you're having. So just stick with it, get it done, and just try and get it. So it's kind of funny to think about the bookshelf and that inspiration. But Adam, if you got any books with you with the covers, any close by?
My books?
Yeah. And do you have a favorite cover?
I don't have any in here.
Oh, okay. That's all right.
Favorite cover though is Made to Kill, which came out in 2015, the first book of the Ray Electromatic mysteries about a robot in 1960s Hollywood who's a detective who's actually a hit robot. But I mean, the cover is like this amazing red and yellow retro, because it's a short book. It's like meant to be that kind of Chandler-esque pulp crime, but with a robot.
So Adam, one of the questions that we ask is if somebody was on their deathbed, not you, but somebody else, and they only had time to read one Adam Christopher book, what book would you recommend that they read?
They should be reading something else for sure. Probably Made to Kill, actually. Like, there's books I like, but I feel I have a personal attachment to some earlier books. But I think reading them now, it would be like, yeah, that book was written 10 years ago, and you can probably tell. But I guess all writers are like that. You know, you want to talk about or think about the new stuff because that's exciting, interesting, and the old stuff is like, you do it differently these days.
It is kind of funny because it's like even the old stuff, but when you were doing that old stuff, that was absolutely everything to you.
Yeah. But I think it's the whole thing of like you learn, like the more you write, the better you get. And the better you get, the harder it gets because you're getting better. And you become so much more aware of your own limitations as a writer, and you get some idea of how you need to overcome those limitations to get better. So there's kind of like this weird contradiction. Yeah, the more you write and the more experience you have, the harder it gets. Like, it doesn't get easier, it gets harder. But at the same time, hopefully, you're getting better. And because you're getting better, it's getting harder. You know what I mean? It's like this kind of circle.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, cool. We're gonna have to wrap up pretty soon because of the time now we're getting on. Is there a place that people can go and find your work? Is there a specific website, or is it generally on Amazon, or where can they find your work?
You can, I think anywhere that books are sold is where you can get my stuff. I mean, my website is adamchristopher.ac or .co.uk, same place. But like that has all my stuff, and I'm on Twitter. As Ghostfinder mostly. Spend way too much time there. I should be writing.
Well, Twitter is one of those big distractions. It's up there, but is there anything particularly a big distraction for you that when something happens, you just gotta, when you're writing, it's time to go, time to move on? Is there a distraction like that for you?
You mean something that stops me writing, or something that I do? Yeah,
derails your in-thought process.
Yeah, it's one of those things like where like I'm super routine orientated because I'm one of those list making routine people, which is I like making lists and writing numbers and things like that.
Yeah.
So like I have to absolutely do my work at the same time. Like first thing in the morning, like I get up and I write, because if I don't do that, my whole day is gone. Like it's just completely. It's just like it's like if you're because obviously everybody works from home now, but like if I know there's a delivery coming at 11 o'clock, like that wrecks my day.
Yeah.
Because it's just something that is like out of my control and is out of my routine. So, which is like a problem because like I need to be writing, and I'm very easily distracted. So maybe next year my New Year's resolution will be do more work.
I did know the other day I had 2 Twitter tabs open at once, and that just sums it up. Yeah, I was in too deep. Oh, God. Yeah, moving on from that one. So just we're gonna have to try and wrap up now, I guess, and we're gonna look forward to. I can't believe it only felt like last week we were saying the Christmas show is in about 6 weeks. It's literally next week. And Chris really has started the writing prompt competition. Not competition, but
I'm going to start right now. That's what I'm going to do.
the next 2 hours. Well,
I'm going to ignore deliveries if they arrive, and I'm just going to write it.
So Chris will send out to once he's done chapter 1.
So Halo, Ross, expect an invitation very shortly.
Yeah, and then we'll get them in as quick as you can because we've got a week to do this and record it as well for the Christmas party. I still haven't got a fancy dress outfit. I've got a hat. That's about it at the moment. It may have to be that. I don't know. But Adam, I know things are kind of terrible at the moment, and COVID's still even worse than ever. Have you got Christmas plans, or is it kind of like everyone else and kind of just found and it is what it is?
Yeah, it's like we're very lucky that I work from home, and I am safe and well. I'm very fortunate, and family is safe and well. And so Christmas is going to be a day where I eat too much. And watch some TV.
That's the plan.
Read some books.
Like it. Reruns of Star Wars, the original trilogy.
Oh, yeah, marathon. It's because it's all like this is it's all on Disney Plus and 4K. So like I can watch everything in 4K. Like just marathon it. That'd be really good.
I'm still I haven't got a clue. Is this the murder friendly one? Halo says. What, the Christmas party? Murder friendly? You mean like more family based? I don't know. Probably not. It's our Halloween party, right?
You can say this is this where we wave?
Yeah, we can do. I mean, please check out our. If we're going to wrap up, I best say it properly. Please check out our beer sponsor, something Mirror. I can't read it; it's too small. What was it called, Chris?
Charlie's Mirror.
Charlie's Mirror. Please check Charlie's Mirror out and support the authors and support the show. Obviously, go to Adam's website and check it out. And obviously, we'll share it on Twitter. So most of you follow us on Twitter, and you can see his profile. Give him a follow and check out his work because there is some brilliant stuff in there as well.
And read the Hopper prequel because you want to.
And some very exciting things coming out in that direction. Thank you, Mr. CJ, Mr. Julia, Mr. Christopher, for your time. Enjoyed. Well, thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure. And join us next week, Wednesday next week. We got a show on Friday, and we got a show on Wednesday next week. Our Christmas party. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got some games, all sorts of stuff. So again, thank you for being with us, and again, we'll see you next week. And this week, Friday, and then next week for the Christmas party. So I'm trying to find. Oh, there it is. Right. Thank you, guys, and thank you, Adam, for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. We'll see you guys next week. This week, Friday. Jesus.
Friday. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.